Hi, friends. Welcome back. Today, we are switching gears a little bit once again because I want to share a more personal part of my journey with all of you. I mean, I don't know how much more personal because we get pretty personal on here, but I recently completed a year-long certification through IIN, which is the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I am now a certified holistic health coach. Yay! How exciting. Um, I slowly began making changes in my health around 2021. And if you have listened to previous episodes, you know that 2021 was a really tough year for me. And if you haven't and you are just joining us, now you do. In the midst of that darkness, in the midst of that phase in my life that was really, really hard, my youngest daughter was also struggling physically and emotionally, and in ways that really felt beyond her dad and I's control. I will share more about the parts of her story later, but in short, she was just struggling with severe patches of eczema, respiratory issues, and was constantly like peeing through her diapers from her shoulders to her knees every night. It didn't matter if they were a size too big, a size too small, fit just right, overnight diapers. It was becoming like an issue. Now, this was just after she had turned 1, and 3 doctor's visits later with her pediatrician, she was tested for diabetes. We were told it was viral, environmental, something she would grow out of, or to just put some cortisone cream on it. And I will tell you that I was absolutely 100% fed up at that point. She was extremely uncomfortable. We didn't know what to do and felt so terrible for her. And she was unable to take a bath comfortably because, like, the chemicals in our town water were affecting her skin so much. Like, she would scream bloody murder. And then I would have to just give her a shower with me because sitting in the tub would like hurt her bottom, and she would like scratch and itch and dig at it. Like I said, it was not great. So her dad and I took her to see a homeopathic chiropractor that I had worked with in the past. And he did NFT muscle testing on her and told us she was sensitive to dairy and gluten. To remove them from her diet, give her these specific detox baths, and see if that helped. The child is 5 years old and she hasn't had eczema since. She stopped peeing through her diapers at night. She was able to bathe without screaming her head off. And even though the respiratory issues were a little bit more of a mountain to climb for us, luckily, 4 years later, we have finally come to a good place with her immune system. And so I know all of that is pretty vague. And like I said, I will go deeper into her story in another episode. She was still just like this bright, shining light, kaleidoscope of colors, also like always very playful and just unique. She's such a cool person and such a cool kid. But she was also, again, struggling with these physical ailments. And it was very, very frustrating. Fortunately for us, we found this different path to take with her and found a solution. She still is technically dairy and gluten sensitive. And so we watch what she eats and things like that. But it's been something that we've been able to navigate and handle without having to put her on any medication. And that makes me feel really good. Not that there's anything wrong with medication, but it just wasn't the path that I wanted to take for her. So when we found out all of these things about her, I began to get more curious about myself. I had spent a large amount of my 20s fighting anxiety, dealing with insomnia, gut issues, skin issues, no libido, harsh periods, migraines, muscle fatigue, brain fog, and no energy. Sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds great for for your 20s. That's when you're supposed to be thriving. No, I was suffering at moments. And at the point that we began removing things from Presley's diet, I had quit drinking alcohol for 3 months. And that was the longest that I had gone without alcohol, other than being pregnant, since I was 17. So 10 years of my life. And to my surprise, my insomnia instantly went away. Like, it was crazy that how much harder I was sleeping without having alcohol in my diet. And I had taken alcohol out because I was doing this 75-day challenge with my best friend, and not having alcohol was a part of it. And that is a subject that I will go into in another episode. And I'll talk about my relationship with alcohol, why I took it out, why I choose now still not to drink. But it played such a huge factor in the beginning parts of my health journey. And I noticed such an extreme difference, which isn't surprising because I suffered from such massive hangovers. I mean, I would violently throw up. I would have leg cramps, muscle aches. I felt like I had shin splints the next morning, migraines, dizziness, gut issues, like all of the things. Any possible hangover symptom you could have, I usually had it. And I still continued to drink for many, many years. Tell me why. I don't know. Like I said, we'll dissect that in another episode. But my migraines also became fewer and farther in between, and my body felt less inflamed than it had in years. At the same time, I was also dropping significant amounts of weight, because when I'm in a state of depression, my body sheds weight very quickly and it can't hold on to it. And so by the end of 2021, I weighed as much as I did as a freshman in high school. This was unintentional, but also just a product of my mental and emotional state at the time. It was a reflection of the internal turmoil that I was feeling, and my health was crumbling along with everything else in my life. And even though it was hard, and it was really, really hard to go through, I truly believe that those rock bottom moments led me to where I am today. It was all a part of the process, and I had to go through that to be able to realize, to choose that I wanted something different. Because again, I will say this a million times, if you are not changing it, you are choosing it. And it was like my body gave me no other option. It gave me no other option. It said, we are not choosing this anymore. We are going to change it. And so it had to like strip me bare, strip me raw. And that's exactly how I felt. It was around the time at the beginning of that year, in the spring, that we were doing all of these things and making all of these changes for Presley, that I took the next step in my health journey. And so I did this hair and saliva test through my chiropractor. And so you do a swab of the inside of your mouth, cut a little bit of your hair, you can clip your fingernails, and you send it off for it to be tested for mineral deficiencies, environmental toxins, food sensitivities, and hormonal imbalances. What I found out was very shocking, but not surprising, if that makes sense. It was very shocking, but it was not surprising. Obviously, I was living in a state of distress. My body was very, very frantic in my 20s, and it was trying to send me messages that I didn't know how to listen to. So I get the results of this test, and I had 14 food sensitivities, the biggest ones being gluten, dairy, alcohol, white sugar, beef, and pork. My digestive and endocrine systems were functioning at 50%, and my large intestine, small intestine, and adrenal glands were just exhausted. So again, it's no wonder I felt like shit all of the time. But over the course of the next 2 years, I started with the heavy hitters. I stayed alcohol free. and I gradually took gluten and dairy out of my diet. Now, that first year, I was pretty back and forth with it. Like, I, on a regular basis, wouldn't eat any gluten or dairy, but then, like, on special occasions, on the weekends, or whatever it was, I would indulge. And the results would typically be pretty instantaneous, whether it was me having to go to the bathroom or just being bloated, not feeling good, getting a headache, whatever it was. Now, by that second year, I was definitely more consistent, and now am extremely committed to that lifestyle. I want to say, though, I did not magically feel 100% overnight, because when you start detoxing your body of the things that make it not feel well, it creates discomfort. It's not like you take these things out and automatically your body's like, oh, yay, thank you, goodbye. Your body is like, now that you're listening, I'm going to send you more clear messages. And the body can heal itself in many different ways, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of intention. And so, as those things are moving out and moving through, they kind of have to have somewhere to go. And so, a lot of the things that happened for me was like my skin purged. Like, I had these very specific spots of acne. Like, I had cystic acne in between my eyebrows all the time, like constantly, just like purging out of my skin. It was the weirdest thing. And my body felt every ache and pain as it detoxed. It was like all of that moving through, all of that toxin, all of that inflammation moving through my body. And the messages just kept getting more and more powerful if I veered off course. Now, I haven't had any alcohol since January 1st of 2021, but if in those 2 years when this first started, if I had had any significant amounts of gluten, I started breaking out in a red prickly rash. And consuming any dairy, which I will consume dairy in the forms of like butter, but not like milk or ice cream or anything like that, or any heavy creams. But consuming dairy usually gives me a headache, sometimes body aches, or an upset stomach. Now, that's only if I'm doing it. Like, if I'm eating out a lot, I will notice those symptoms will come into fruition. But on a regular basis at home, I will use like a very clean, like Irish, um, clarified Irish butter or ghee and things like that, that my body can digest relatively well. Anyways, back to the timeline here. But 4 years later, I am still completely alcohol and gluten free. And again, like I said, we'll occasionally have dairy through butter or Parmesan cheese. That doesn't seem to bother me too much, but that's about the extent of it. And I want to say that I'm sharing this because it was what worked for me, and it is what has led me to being able to create a closer relationship with my body, me, Paige and Lane Miller, right here. How and what you need to do to build that relationship with yourself and your body is going to look completely different, because we are all very different. And as I have learned in IIN, we are all bio-individual, and taking that into consideration is the only way that we can find peace in our healing and in our health in a way that actually works. Those lifestyle changes are very specific to us. What works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for the next person. What works for your child might not work for your other child. And so I think that that is the intention that we have to really be mindful of when we're doing anything in regards to our health. And that can be mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. My journey has been a gateway for me to get in tune with my body, with my intuition, and to learn and understand more clearly what serves me and what doesn't. So I'm never going to be the one that's telling you that like everybody needs to be gluten free, because that's not the case. That is not the case. Some people can digest and process gluten perfectly fine. For some people, it's in seasons. There's times in their life where they're like, okay, yeah, this feels good, this feels okay. Other times it's not. I I didn't eliminate, but I had limited beef and pork in my diet because it would upset my stomach. But lately, I've been craving more red meat. So I have been listening to that. Like, my body's craving more iron. So I've been listening to that, and I've been allowing myself to eat more red meat on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be an all in all of the time. It's going to change because you change, we change. Like constantly, our bodies are evolving and cycling and functioning differently. So we have to be mindful of that as we make these choices, as we make these changes, and as we shift into, you know, these decisions that we're making. All right, enough of that tangent. But as I have continued to heal over the last few years, I have worked with so many wonderful people, healers, practitioners, and they have inspired me to take this leap. But I know that even though right here, right now, where I am, my journey is not over. I mean, I've still been dealing recently with some more digestive issues, but they've shown up in a different way than they had in the past. Again, like I said, the issue with like feeling like I needed more iron in my diet. I had a pinched nerve in my neck that had me like walking around like a robot. My skin is flaring up again, and I'm trying to figure out some hormonal imbalances. So, just because this is the path that I am traveling doesn't mean that I feel good and great all of the time. I feel a hell of a lot better than I used to. I feel a hell of a lot better than I used to. My 30s are definitely looking up in comparison to how I felt in my 20s. But what it does mean is that I am doing my best to care for my body now with the tools and the information and the knowledge that I have, because that's all we can do. We can take what we know and we can integrate it and implement it into our lives in a way that feels comforting and good, not in a way that feels restrictive or shameful or harmful to our mental, emotional, or spiritual health. And I don't want my body to fall into a chronic state of dis-ease later in life. This journey for me is not about perfection, it's about prevention. And it took me 28 years to wire all of these patterns around my physical body and my physical health and the way that I ate and the way that I approached wellness and exercise and the way I looked at myself in the mirror. So, it taking me 28 years to wire all of these beliefs, it's going to take some time for me to untangle them. And it's going to take you some time to untangle yours. And that's okay. That's part of the journey. That's how we know we are growing and evolving in this life. On top of all of that, we don't live in a world that supports the highest vibration for our health. This world is built on fast paced, pressurized continuations of work, money, materials, and poor health that feed a system that leaves us depleted on a daily basis. It's not easy to undo, and sometimes it's really hard to live in. Most of the times, even harder to accept that we are a part of it, especially the more we learn in this life. At least that's how it's been for me. At least that's how it's been for me. And I've had to deal with the emotions around that. But what I believe that we can continue to do is to learn. We can see things through a different lens, approach life, health, love, money in a way that serves us more authentically so that we can be fed by life instead of feeding into a broken system. I'm going to say that again, not just for you, but for me, so that we can approach life, health, love, and money in a way that serves us more authentically so that we can be fed by life instead of feeding into a broken system. Okay, we'll save the applause for later. But despite the fact that I still have struggles, I feel a million times better. That's why when people, I get it, people fear aging. They do. But when I look back, I sure as hell would not want to feel like I did when I was 22 in comparison to now at 33. There's no way, because I feel a million times better in my 30s than I did in my 20s. And that's enough for me to continue going on this path. And it's also what led me into looking into IIN and to get my holistic health coaching certification, because starting from the beginning, like, I wanted to do this to be of service to myself, to my children, and to my family. And not necessarily because I wanted to create this grand business container to be able to like make a bunch of money and be a health influencer online. No, that wasn't my intention when I started this. And I'm not sure that that's even my intention now that I have finished it, but we will see. We will see how the trajectory evolves. Now, we're going to start from the beginning, and I'm going to give you a little background and a little bit of information, because you could hear, all right, you got a holistic health coaching certification, but what does that mean? What does it mean to be a holistic health coach? Does it mean that I can prescribe medication? No. Does it mean that I can give you a supplement regimen and a full dietary plan? No. Does it mean that I can order or read blood work or test results? No, it does not. So what the hell does it mean? Well, from my experience, my intention, the work that I've done, and the way that I have approached this, what it means to me is that I can be a guide that allows you to connect deeper with yourself through a holistic lens. Because holistic means whole body health, your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health coming together to create your reality. I am here to be a part of the support system that allows you to find understanding, attain longevity for your goals, and staying accountable to who you are becoming. That sounds pretty freaking fantastic, doesn't it? At least I think so. And it's been a journey. There were moments of it that were so easeful, that I was just like so in it, so excited. I could pay such close attention and have such good focus. And I learned so much. And then there were others that I found resistance to it, because life is busy and chaotic and crazy. And anytime you do something new, you're going to be challenged. I felt the same exact thing whenever I got certified in astrology. But along the way, it really helped me to learn so much more about myself and about the work that I want to do and the work that I want to share and the values that I want to live my life with. And my mom asked me the other day what the most valuable thing was that I learned in this program. And I don't know, I think my answer may have surprised her a little bit, but what came to me immediately was that it wasn't the knowledge about food, nutrition, epigenetics, or regenerative farming, but it was the ability to actively listen, asking high mileage questions, and to give those that you are working with your unconditional presence. Most of the time, what people need more than anything is for someone to hear them, see them, and hold space for them. And as a holistic health coach, I'm not here to fix you, because you are not broken. But I am here, not just as a coach, but as a person, to hold space for you so that you can heal yourself. Because nobody's going to want to pay to have a health coach for the rest of their life. They're going to pay to learn from someone, for someone to be their guide to get them started on their journey. And at the end of the day, most of us deep down know what it is that we need to do to feel better. But most of the time, we spend our lives chasing answers in the outside world that are already within. And that resistance, again, I'm going to go back to that because I'm also currently rereading The War of Art. That resistance can keep us trapped, chasing the next fad diet, waiting until we have enough money to be able to hire so-and-so to stand by us and do this program. Or which those are all great things. Those are great things to be able to do that. But it's the resistance that keeps us trapped, because we can hire the health coach, we can hire the personal trainer, we can do all of the things A, B, C, or D. We can buy the vegetables and put them in our refrigerator. But if we allow resistance to win and we don't eat them and we don't keep ourselves accountable to what our coach is trying to help us through, or if we decide to do the diet and we don't set ourselves up for success, then where are we going to get? Nowhere. We're going to stay stagnant and we're going to stay still. We know the things that we need to do. They're already within us. Those answers are there if we get quiet enough to listen. But resistance convinces us that we can't attain them without all of these external things pointing the way. And that is untrue. And that is the kind of guide and mentor that I want to be for people in this life. The one that reminds them that you have the power. You have the power to change your life. Can I be here to help you? Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me be of service to you. But let me be of service to you in a way that reminds you that you have the capacity. You have the answers. You have the power within to make it freaking happen. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because we feel like we need permission to live the life that we want to live, or that we're so afraid of change that we refuse to let go and surrender. Or maybe it's because we would rather be victims of our lives than actually choose to live them. Trust me, I've been there. The list goes on and on. But what all of these things have in common is that we are the ones who have to decide when we are ready for them to be different. Because again, I feel like this has just been coming up for me so often. So maybe there's something in my life that I need to listen. I need to listen to it. But because when we are not actively changing the things that are making us ill, we are choosing them. Somewhere around 80% of people who go to the doctor don't actually have something wrong with them. Like, let that sink in. Somewhere around 80% of the people who go to the doctor don't actually have something wrong with them. They just need someone to listen. Isn't that wild? They are just so uncomfortable in their own lives that they are reaching for anything to validate their unhappy experience. Because what's the easiest way to do that? By having something to blame, by being sick, by being wrong. I just went through this recently where I was like, man, like I had the flu twice this year. I keep having this issue with this pinched nerve. And I went down this whole victimized myself in this whole shame spiral because I was like, I do so much to take care of myself. I do so much. I do the saunas and I exercise and I meditate and I journal and I eat well and blah, 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 blah. And I drink the water and I still feel like shit. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And that was internally going on in my head. And so I was like, something's got to be wrong. Something's got to be wrong. Something's got to be wrong with me, right? And so I got my yearly blood work done. There was one thing. One, hormones are imbalanced. And it was this realization that it was like, you were looking for something to be wrong with you because you were allowing the stress in your life to control you. You were allowing the negative thoughts in your head, these things that are happening, to control the narrative that you had about your life and your health. And you were convinced that something had to be wrong with you. That is why you didn't feel good. That is why this thing kept happening. Okay, yeah, sure. It's valid that I didn't feel good. It's valid that these things happened and they were frustrating. But it didn't necessarily mean that something was wrong with me. Maybe it just meant that I was so hyper fixated on all of the things that I was trying to control that were out of my control. My fear of being vulnerable, or my lack of patience, my ability to avoid resting when actually needed. We're just controlling this narrative when in reality, it was my narrative, my negative narrative, that was creating all of this discomfort in my physical body. And yeah, how easy is that for us? So again, I had to call myself out on it. I had to call myself out on my shit because that's what we need to do. And that's what we do when we have self-awareness, because that's the whole point. That's the whole point of attaining self-awareness, is so that when these things repeat themselves in our lives, we can stop ourselves in our track and be like, girl, you healthy. You doing good. And yeah, there's going to be days where you're not going to feel the greatest. And yeah, there's going to be things that might be a little bit off sometimes, but you have the knowledge, the power, and the control to be able to do something about it. So, why is it that we believe that leaning on a physical ailment that tells us we can't be happy, we can't get healthy, we can't live a life we love because XYZ is wrong with us? And unfortunately, in today's world, it's very easy for a doctor to slap a label on us. Not all, but some. There's some good doctors out there, people. And there are some good ways to find the help that you need. I'm not trying to dog on Western medicine or the system. But even though I'm generalizing, it is a very common thing for us to go to the doctor, be slapped with a label, and moved out the door. So that then we leave with this false sense of validation for our discomfort, or we leave confused, or we leave unheard, or we leave with no more information than we arrived with. Because again, in our society, living in constant discomfort, living in dis-ease has become such a normalized thing in this world. And that doesn't make it go away. It puts a Band-Aid over it. It puts a Band-Aid over it. And like I said, I'm not trying to discredit the work that doctors do or the people out there that are truly ill, because there are people that are truly ill. But what I'm trying to say is that dis-ease in your life will create disease in your body. And so when I began my journey with IIN, my goal was to learn about how to live holistically for myself and my family. Like I said, it was not to come into this and create a big coaching practice or, become a health and wellness influencer online. Do I want to make an impact in this area of life with this podcast, with this conversations and the things that I'm doing and creating? Absolutely. But it was because I knew that with the resources and knowledge that this certification gave me, I could make a bigger impact on those around me. That was my intention. And that's the goal for me with each and everything I do and learn. Astrology, holistic health, this podcast. I want to be of service. I want to use this platform and these tools in a way that can make a positive impact on the world, on my children, on my family. Again, and so I'm right here. I'm sitting in the chair. I'm having the conversation. I'm doing the work and learning the things and sharing them with you as vulnerably and as authentically as I possibly can. And it was funny as I was going through all of this, how much being a hairstylist for the last 16 years has prepped me for this job. It's prepped me for this podcast. It's prepped me for being able to mentor people and coach people in whatever capacity I wish to do that in. Because what I have done behind the chair is held space. I've held space for people, and lots of it. In return, space has been held for me, but now it's different. Instead of just being the chaos of life, getting tossed back and forth in conversation, it's empowered conversation. It's more resources. It's more authenticity. It's more active listening and asking really good questions so that people not only feel validated, but they feel seen and heard. And that feels really, really good for those relationships and the relationships in my life, because as I've navigated all of this for myself and my daughters, I've learned a lot about how to be able to eat good quality food while honoring the budget of a single income household, which is not easy. Which is not easy, especially with inflation the way that it is right now in this world. And I've been able to have conversations and teach my children how to support their bodies if they want to be a successful athlete, but not in a way that shames them or puts them in a box. And also not in a way that I want to make them feel guilty if they don't want to listen. Like, that's okay too. I put boundaries on what can support them in many ways, even when they don't like it. And we have open conversations about why and what it is that can create an unhealthy environment, whether that is with friendships or food or the mindsets that we carry. And that doesn't mean that it all goes perfectly all of the time. I have a 5-year-old who is a sugar fiend, but I've done the work and attained the knowledge so that then I feel like I can get us a little bit closer than maybe the version of me would have when I was in my 20s. I just try to celebrate that and honor that and be mindful of that. I've also begun making changes in our household to support a non toxic environment, but still light a soy candle every once in a while because it doesn't do anything for us if it puts us into that box of restriction. I've been in multiple boxes of restriction in my life when it comes to health, wellness, food, beauty standards. And I have slowly but surely been breaking myself out of those. It's not been easy. There have been very ugly parts of myself that I have had to look at and honor and love and hold space for because I had a lot of limiting beliefs and unhealthy habits when it came to my body, when it came to food, when it came to exercise. And that critic could really run the narrative again in those ways. And so those are the things that I'm trying to unwire as I take steps towards living as my most empowered self, making these changes within my home for myself and my daughters, but also like not feeling like it all has to be perfect all of the time. It's all about baby steps. It's all about taking one thing that's important to you at a time and making a small shift. And it's about mindfully learning, being patient, and doing the small things that can make a big shift in your life. One year, it was pots and pans that I wanted to focus on and like the things in my kitchen. And like now I've been focusing on my skincare and makeup and like shifting those things out. So it doesn't have to be all at once. Number one, that is not affordable, at least for this girl's budget. But these are the lessons that I want to teach and guide people with using my holistic health coaching certification, and paired with astrology, it can go even deeper, which I think is really cool. So whether that be with mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health, I feel like it can be very, very vast, and it can be very, very impactful to our lives. And yeah, I feel like I was like very quick-winded today, but I appreciate you holding space to hear another piece of my story. And if you are looking for someone to hold space for you, I am now offering 1 hour one-on-one sessions. Like I said, if you need somebody to hold space, these will be via phone or FaceTime for anything from anxiety to hard conversations or low tox living. If you want to book a session because you want to learn how I started going gluten free, if you want to learn how I started switching out things within my home to be more low tox, we can talk brands, we can talk budget, we can talk affordability, we can talk the small steps and break it down. If it's your mindset, if it's things that you're wanting to do differently for your physical health, or if you're wanting to start a morning ritual, I can help you build that. And like astrology is an optional component if you provide your birth info. But these sessions are just like one time only. This is not a program. This is not a commitment. These are things that you can utilize when you need them. Now, we can do multiple of them, but it doesn't mean that you have to or you're locked in. It's like getting therapy from your hairstylist, but without getting your hair done. So you just get to bask in my presence. I am going to link a Google form in my bio and in the show notes. And that is what you will go to and you will click on, you will fill out the information, and then we will be able to connect further on how it is I can be of service to you in this way. So, like I said, thank you for holding space for me. As always, please follow, subscribe, and leave a review if you feel called, only if it's nice. Come say hi on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Turn the Page Podcast. All right. It's been fun, guys. Once again, I love you. Thanks for being here. Bye.